Welcome to Mind Vault podcast, where we unlock minds one story at a time. In today's fast-paced and ever-evolving work environment, understanding the importance of mental well-being is crucial for both the employees and the employer. Whether you are a leader looking to implement changes or an employee seeking balance, this is the space for you. So let's dive in and discover how we can transform our workplaces into thriving environments for mental health.
Today, I have a guest, Zinzile. She is a multifaceted and highly impactful, influential leader, mother, wife, and friend. She has a presence that you cannot ignore. She's bold and confident, and I remember the day when I first met her, I just knew that she has to come to this platform. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mind Vault podcast, where we unlock minds one story at a time. I am your host, Dr. Samke Ngobo. I am somebody who's navigating lived experience with mental illness, and this is a component of the show that I'm so passionate and excited about. We talk about the lived experience with mental illness, and I interview incredible guests, which I admire greatly. Today is no different. I have a guest with me, Zinzile.
Oh man, you're too kind. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for you. And thank you for this ministry that you're on.
Oh, thank you so much, Zinzile. Zinzile, you are many things. You have a Bible of CV. But if somebody were to ask you outside of your roles, who are you?
I will take it to origins. I identify as a last-born daughter of the Tobejane family, one of the royal houses of Babedi in Limpopo. I then identify as a mom wife and, of course, a leader, a female leader in the turbulent South African business landscape and whatever have you. I identify as somebody who truly thrives in collective communities. I value candor, consistency, and heart. I am all about realness, truth, and accommodation. Over and above all of that, I'm neurospicy.
I love that, by the way.
And why, thank you. And naturally spicy. I've always been a little different. Maybe too different as a kid. And even before mental wellness or health or illness became a thing to me, I knew, and those around me, they knew. So I'm all that, and most of all, I'm human.
I love that. You know, Zinzile, when you first came up to me and we spoke, something stood out about you. You just have a presence about you, and you have an audacity in your presence. And I love that.
Thank you.
You know, you share so openly. From the moment I met you, you were just so confident to share about your journey. Can you take us through how people found that there's a mental challenge or whatever difference that you talk about? Can you take us through that?
The audacity you speak of. My younger self was boisterous, and I would question everything. Naturally, there's a decorum in communities, what children are expected to be, but I was none of that. And being the last born meant that there was a Bible of what children are, look like, and how they thrive in my family. But I was the one who was going against all of that. It was taken as rebellious, perhaps, at times unruly, and then just papa. That's what it used to just be summed up to. Fast forward, I'm in high school. Naturally, the smarts are the superpower that comes with our kind. And that was celebrated. But then everything else that is me was frowned upon because it was too much.
And this too much that you speak of, what was it? What did it look like at the time?
Now that I'm here and I know better, that too much was different. It looked innovative. It looked daring, creative, and charismatic. It was just too much in a world where we are being raised to conform and toe the line and walk the line. I always joke and say, I'm a splash of color. I've always been. But the environments and the communities that I was being raised in or growing up being a part of, we're not ready.
You're saying something so important, that you within your world, you were not having issues with it, but the environment was not accommodating to who you were. Were you aware that the environment is questioning how you are showing up?
Oh, yes. It was obvious. I earned myself pet names, code names. Computers in my teen years were the most smart thing that we imagined was out there. And that was one of my names. Ucomputer, usiyazi, ucontrol freak, isdina. Right? And they didn't shy away to literally making me see it, feel it. I was an outcast. I've always been a misfit. And others would vocalize it in hate speech. And I only had my smarts to mask with and as a survival tool, because then I would use it to garner rapport within groups that wouldn't naturally even look at me. I would volunteer to do homework, tutorials, assignments for people, cover for people, write speeches and such, just to curry favor and find space for myself within their lives and their timeline. And then to also try and mute hate speech, because imagine as a teenager, what others say, you internalize and then you start believing it.
And it becomes your
truth.
identity. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And when did you get to a point, what was happening in your life that led to you getting a diagnosis of sorts? What was happening that led to a point where you now have an encounter with professionals where a diagnosis is made?
I was on an accelerated program in school. So I made it to university at 15 and a half. So in first year, that major leap and change, a major life activity like moving out of home, coming into a new community, in the raises, the student accommodation, as well as within the faculty and then the classes that I would take with other people. That leap turned my life upside down because that was a massive change. I realized at that point that I had a mental overload. And then I was socially depleted because I had gone through high school masking and being someone else that I wasn't, so much that I crashed. During orientation week, I recall there being a time where the resident leaders had to come and say, Zinzile, are you okay? At that point, I had started recoiling into myself. In the newsletter for the first years in my residency, they even wrote about where is Zinzi? You've become the hermit. I earned myself that name because then at that point, literally, I'd be cooped up in my room. If it wasn't compulsory and someone was going to come and kick the door down and fetch me to go become part of it, I would literally opt out of all social engagements. I started binge eating. I started just being a loner, even going to campus. I'd wait for the bus to leave me at Reyes so that I get on the secondary bus that has a few people who are running late, just to avoid the communal space, because I knew that I was going to walk into another in the lecture room and then during the breaks. I'm that girl who on campus would sit in the library because that was the most peaceful place. I'd go into the informal study, 24-hour study area during breaks. I would avoid classmates. I'd become that person, not because I'm not a social being. I love people, but because it had become too much at that point. It went on for the first term, and it was my rhythm. In the evening, I would get phone card. We used to use those.
Yeah.
And then I would go to the Telkom Tiki box.
Yes.
And then I would call home. Mommy, Daddy, I'm not copay. And they'd be asking, but you're smart. It can't be the academics. I'm like, it's everything. And my mother never quite understood what everything was. However, I had a special relationship with my dad. So I got an outlet there to say and specify. At that point, they were not so learned around the issue of mental health, seeking help, and all of that. But being who I was, I sought information. And because when you leave home as a dependent on a medical aid, you get issued your own card.
Yes.
I took that first step. I walked in. I remember Pretoria, Louis Pasteur Hospital. They told me psychologists and psychiatrists are on the 11th floor. I took myself there. I read the names. My instincts I picked one. I walked in there and I spoke to the receptionist and I said, I need help. And I think your doctor is the one. When can she see me? We're like, well, we generally work by appointment. I'm like, if I leave today and the doctor hasn't seen me, I don't even think I'm going to make it to Reyes. So I don't know how you deal with those.
Sure.
She then went in. I told you I was a daring person. I just went in there and then, I'm giving you this. This is an emergency. I don't know if there's an ER for psychs, but this is it. This is your ER case for psychology. So here I am. She went in. And he says, no, wait a minute. Once the doctor's done with the current consult, she'll come out and then, she'll talk to you. I sat there, I perused through everything that, the pamphlets and everything there while I waited. She was Dr. Marina Boniev. That name for me carries so much weight in terms of how the trajectory of my life then unfolded from that moment onwards. She took me as a walk-in. I sat there. I was just a kid, almost 16. And then she says, yeah, who are you? I hear that you demanded to see me. I'm like, well, not so much a demand, but like my life depends on me seeing you right now. And I just felt like you're the right person. And she says, how do you even know that? I'm like, no. I have a thing with energy, right? I was walking down the corridor and then peeping through, even the energy that the receptionist gives. Your room was the right one for me. And with you seeing me without an appointment, I feel like it's an affirmation that my energy did not lie. You're it. Needless to say, she smiled, and then I did my admin while sitting with the doctor and telling the doctor about school, about what is this thing that's niggling me, even before we got to a formal consult. The administrator assisted me with filling in the rest of the forms, and then they would call in the medical aid and needed parents to also then approve. At that point, I then said to her, would you mind maybe calling my brother, not my mom? I was like, why is that? I'm like, nah, she's not going to get it. She's not going to get it.
And did your psychiatrist at the time then tell you, after you sharing your journey, what feedback did you receive after that consultation and after that whole unfolding? What was her feedback to you?
Call your brother. Have him come through. and take you to res. You need to pack a few things. You're getting admitted. I need to have you under observation.
Mm-hmm. And hearing that feedback, did it give you anxiety, or was it calming or a relief for you to know that, affirming in a way for you to say that I need help? I was pursuing help, and the psychiatrist is now saying that I need to pack my bags and go to the hospital. Or was it daunting for you? How did that feel?
I always say I drew breath for the first time in my life.
Wow.
At that moment, I felt heard, seen, understood, and held at that moment, because it wasn't all in my head. I wasn't being too sensitive. I wasn't being a lasbon about it. Because at that moment, even science confirmed that there's a cause for concern.
Wow. And what was the diagnosis, your initial diagnosis, when this began? Like when your brother was called in, what did they say your diagnosis? When people say neurospicy, they don't understand
Yes.
So what was the formal diagnosis that you received?
The initial phrase, it still rings in my ears. The doctor says, she's definitely neurodivergent. Right now, she's got depression and anxiety, and an episode is happening and unfolding as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of pegging it to a thing, I've looked at her case and compared it with other cases that I've dealt with and the science behind it. I think it's autism.
I want to pause here for a part, because often when parents hear the diagnosis of their child, being told that, your child is autistic, it's like they feel like it's a sentence of sorts. It's a hopeless case. And you say you drew breath. What would you say to parents who hear about this, about their children or families being somebody who's been diagnosed and living with this for such a long time? What would you say to people who are watching us? It's fascinating to me where I remember the first day when I met you, you told me about your diagnosis so bravely. And I thought, my goodness, in my work, I've never had somebody who's thriving with it, triumphant. I know it comes with challenges. What would you say to people who are seeing somebody who's autistic for the first time about people, not to say like you, but people navigating your journey?
A diagnosis, a formal diagnosis, is a superpower. It is also ammunition and empowerment for you to then chart your course going forward, because now you will be intentional about the things that you need to be mindful for you to be able to navigate life minute for minute, breath by breath. So it is important to get an evaluation and a diagnosis.
And how do you protect your mental health, knowing that, the world we live in doesn't always accommodate difference in any way? Life has to keep going on. You have roles that you play in the work environment, as a parent, as a wife, as a daughter, as a friend. There's so many demands. How do you navigate and protect your mental health?
It starts with ownership. Own what it is that it means to say you are living with or living through a mental illness or a condition, right? Once you have owned it, and then you accept yourself. Accepting oneself empowers you to be able to demand the accommodations from society, starting with your immediate family in the house where you live, with your own children and how you relate to them and how they can access you. And also owning the different types of moments and days that being neurospicy demands of you. I allocate myself a no plans day. I allocate myself a no social interaction day. I then schedule family interactions. I schedule immediate family dynamic. I then schedule overall social engagements, whether be it professionally, be it within the community, or even showing up at extramurals for my children. I protect and manage my energy. I do not leave it to chance. I own the different states and stages that I find myself in order to live a full life. On a day that I would call at my lowest, a depleted day, after having had social engagements or even work or the family, feeling like the children have had me. That burnout schedule, I say success looks like if I get out of that bed, go to the loo before my bladder pops, look myself in the mirror, brush my teeth, wash my face, and return to my room. And it's okay.
Wow. I just love the fact that you come with such confidence about your journey, and your openness about it is so important because it empowers and gives hope to other people, and to know how to navigate life with somebody navigating a journey similar to yours. What has made you become confident? And I know you're doing amazing work in your field to create provision and accommodation of people who are neurodivergent. Can you speak more about that as we're wrapping up?
Having lived through life masking, having to pretend to be what I'm not in order to be palatable, welcomed, accepted, and included, it became important for my story to be heard. One, for me to champion the education, literacy, and the accommodations in society, in the spaces where I occupy and where I have a voice. Because unless you have lived through or with a mental health challenge, you do not know. There's the generalization that says, Ahmed, but isn't everybody a little autistic and ADHD, ADD? And I toe the line at that point and say, no, actually, no. Even before we get to the diagnosis, right? Yes, the traits of one with ADHD, ADHD, and autism may be experienced by a neurotypical person. But the frequency, the intensity of it, the impact of it being experienced all at once, it's compounding. While trying to do everyday life, all of these things are orbiting. And somehow you must show up like everybody else does. What's so special about you? So talking about it, championing those causes that says the accommodations are actually not a lot to ask. The same way that your physical, typical special needs are seen to. Actually, hello, park here. There's a need. And it's a very big one. And if we are to talk about inclusivity, you might want to do a double take here. Because if you are to look at your own stats and your own numbers, you'll realize that actually the same way that you had a hoopla around HIV AIDS back way back when, here by mental health, that's where it is right now. and that needs you. And then it starts with us, with lived experiences, to chart that course from a place of being well versed in it, traversing that terrain, and having to interrelate and exist in multiple spaces while all of it remains true in your life. And also then are supposed to shine the light and say, it's possible. You can thrive through neurodivergence. It doesn't really stop you from having a full life and living a full life. It just says yours is punctuated slightly different. And if you accept those things and own them, you will show up and wield your neurodivergence as a superpower, which is what I've managed to do throughout life. The audacity that being neurodivergent gives me is unprecedented. If you were to put a person whom we call normal here and me, I literally just push the envelope. I'm not risk averse. I'll try it before I recoil. I will go at it, and I'm welcoming and more open to different types of people because I know and understand what it is to be a pariah.
Oh, Zinzile, I could talk to you for a long time. You just are a well of wisdom, but also your bravery and your sharing is so insightful because people don't often understand your people who navigate the journey like yours. And I feel like you're a voice to people not just living with neurodivergence, but you've created access points for people with different mental health conditions to have a voice. You know, in the working space, I this is off camera when you and I were speaking and engaging, and you know, I know that when we attend events together, people leave you and I continue talking, and I learned so much about what you do. I want you to share more about the provisions that you ensure are made in work settings for people with challenges related to their mental health. You're very passionate about that. Can you share more about that?
No, absolutely. We lead from the front. As a leader who is neurodivergent, it is important for me to identify as such, to take away the stigma of saying, higher up the ladder, they're perfect. They've got this story bedded down to the T. But just come as we are, as they've experienced us, all the while knowing that we are living through mental health challenges. What it does, being vulnerable with your team, gives them permission to be vulnerable, invites them, and makes you relatable. Even when they're not diagnosed and they're thinking about it, or they suspect that they are, or somebody else in their social settings has diagnosed them, they're able to come to you and just bare their souls. Suddenly, you're no longer just a suit at work, but a beacon of hope in ways that you wouldn't even imagine. Because the quality of the work that they see you do, the quality of the outputs, and the regard that the rest of the leadership and the organization hold towards you affirms that it's okay, even if I'm living with mental health challenges. It doesn't mean that I can't be what I will myself to be or want to be. I must just be contented that my journey will be slightly different getting there and not try to shoehorn themselves into the typical expectation. Secondly, your peers, holding them accountable, sensitizing them to say you are not attuned to their humanity. You are neglecting their humanity and you are using them as resources, human resources, but they're actually human before they're resources. And also in those spaces where you get to influence policy, be it at institutions of higher learning, be it in corporate itself, or even in business, you being intentional about making accommodations for those that, the same way you identify high performers, average, and then, yeah, the just bare minimum, you need to profile, and not profile in a bad way, but profile to empower
And support.
And to also educate using your HRBP to say it is an area that you need to cover here, that not just PDP and KPIs. No. Are you okay? Have you been okay? If a manager takes responsibility to say, I have seen Usamke, she's not quite herself. In meetings, she's withdrawn. She's hardly ever late, but lately she's tardy. Or even how she dresses. That's not the Samke we know. And if you're attuned to your people, those things are glaring. And then you will handle with care. And handling with care does not mean we forget your professional contract. It just means we see to your individual needs within your context. Even the support and the coaching that you'll be afforded on whatever you're working on will be contextual, and it is important.
So Zinzile, can you talk about, your work, how you advocate within the work setting, particularly with the one organization, the academic organization, where you say even in the assessments, you want them to accommodate people in that way, that people learn differently. It doesn't mean they're not capable just because they can't deliver in the same way. Can you speak about that?
No, absolutely. While I was doing my master's, I had put myself back into academia. And my experience at this one institution was a game changer for me. Because undergrad and whatever followed after that was very traditional, rigid, and do this or go home or be excluded. However, in adult education, executive education, I found myself in a room of flawsome people, awesome and within their flaws. And because they had been leading in large organizations and being celebrated, I suppose, in the country and even in corporate, etc., they didn't have a chip on their shoulder, nor did they look down on anybody. They just assumed we're all equal in this room and we're here to learn, right? And as one person, you can't always know everything. That was the first thing. That environment was welcoming and accommodating. And it laid a platform for one as I to also feel like I belong. And my way of thinking and how I look at life and the inputs and and challenging them to those things was an eye opener for them, and they wanted to hear more. So much that throughout that program, how we would engage with the psychologists that and the academic coaches and whatnot, they delved more into that, and they were open to designing around that. The accommodations were shocking because after a conversation, after they've observed, and comes a deadline, comes an excursion, comes a what, it would be packaged in a way that would be accommodating, right? The deadlines that are there, they're quite tough. However, what was different was, yes, the deadline is the deadline. The accommodation would educate you around how if you give yourself an extra day, an extra 24 hours, you forego 5%. And if you give yourself an additional 4 days and make it 5 days, that's 10%. You are empowered now. It's not, you are either in or you are out, but it's manage your time, your energy from a place of being empowered. Accept the fact that you're going to put your all and fetch the 90% or at least 85% of that. Even if I come in at 90, I know I've got 85%, so I'm still fine. So that's a privilege that not many institutions are vocal about or will encourage. It's run to the finish line at the same pace, same rate, or else. Similarly, my niece was actually laughing at this and reminding me, you don't realize that you did your entire dissertation in 6 weeks. I'm like, why is it important to say that? Like, no, because all of us started in March for a submission on the 1st of November. Some of us still requested a postponement and couldn't graduate in autumn, had to graduate in spring. But you sprinted to the end and still got it and graduated. And I said to her, it's because I'm neurodivergent. It's not necessarily a good thing. It doesn't mean I wasn't pondering it and stressing about it, leading to it. It doesn't mean I wasn't overwhelmed. And it doesn't mean that I wasn't trying. It just wasn't happening because I did not have the capacity, whether it's social capacity, mental capacity. I had reached fatigue. I was lethargic. I couldn't act. I couldn't do anything, actually. I was paralyzed. But from you sitting there, you saying, wow, 6 weeks? But it wasn't by choice. It was because my brain could only afford me that capacity. Hyper-focus now and finish it and get it out. So in the institutions of higher learning, I took my experience and in the boards and whatever have you rooms where I sit, I share this story and then I implore the room, can we think differently about how we assess, how we expect people to traverse the academic journey, and can we design certain experiences within context? Because for me, it was revolutionary.
And in the work setting, before you had leadership roles, what do you think would have made it easier for you? And this is a message now to leadership in the work setting for people who are neurodivergent, for people with other mental health challenges. What do you think they can do better? You are somebody that has more insight, therefore you lead better.
Yes.
But for people who still really think we're all the same, KPIs, deliverables, deadlines, not thinking that people have different challenges along the way, what do you think they can do better? Your message to them?
Energy and demeanor do not lie. If one of your subordinates comes across as too much, too questioning, or pines a lot, wants her finger in every pie, it's probably because they have a level of neurodivergence in them and then they get bored easily. They're seeking stimulus. And it's important for you to not look at them as challenging your authority and trying to be a know-it-all and go over your head, but to harness their difference for the delivering on the objectives of the division, of the team, deploying them in tasks, roles, assignments, where they get to wield their difference. And you actually get more out of them because you are not now seeing them as a problem, but then you're seeing them as one of the team's superpower, which is unique.
I admire you greatly. thank you so much for being a part of Mind Vault podcast. When we resonate with people, they become part of the Mind Vault family.
Yeah.
And you definitely are part of that family. Thank you so much for your time. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please continue to engage with our content. We love all of you, and we'll continue sharing with you. Until next time, goodbye.